My best friend of almost 30 years and I played the first 3 Gears of War games back on the Xbox 360 and we beat each and every single one of them on every difficulty, one after the other. The interesting thing is though, neither one of us are normally fans of first or third person shooters, which also means we were never really that good at those kind of games. There was just something different about playing Gears of War co-op with a friend, and the only way we got through the insane difficulty modes was the teamwork we'd built up over the decades. But then I decided to ruin it all by suggesting that we do an extremely painful challenge run together. To be fair though, my friend did recently decide to start his own brand new challenge run YouTube channel, so he was kinda asking for it. So, can you beat Gears of War with only melee? Let's find out. Here are the rules. But first, you're not going to believe this, but I don't have a sponsor for this video. So clearly our corporate overlords have chosen the side of evil and are working with the Locust Army. I won't let them get away with it, and if you'd like to join the good fight, then please support me on Patreon for just $1.50 a month. With our combined hand, we will triumph over this evil and you will help me keep the lights on around here, thank you. Back to the rules. Rule number 1, we can only use melee attacks throughout the game whenever possible. Rule number 2, we will be playing on insane difficulty. And rule number 3, once we defeat the final boss, General Ram, we win! It's fairly obvious from the intro, but we will be performing this run in co-op. And we will also be playing on the reloaded version of the game. Despite this being the most recent version, this game is still quite broken. I guarantee you've not seen a Gears 1 playthrough quite like this. My friend's name is Ash, and he will be playing as Marcus, and I will be playing as Dom. When you take damage in this game, a bloody red gear logo starts to appear in the center of the screen. If we stop taking damage for a few seconds, we recover our health, and the logo fades away. If we take too much damage, the logo completes and we get dropped. The advantage of playing in co-op is that our partner can pick us back up again if they can reach us. But if we both go down, we are returned back to the most recent checkpoint. At the very start of the game, it pits us against 2 Locusts. Anyone who's played this game will know that the combat is all about shooting enemies from behind cover. But in this run, we need to get up close and personal if we want to deal any damage. This is how we found out just how dangerous the enemies are on insane difficulty. Not only do we get dropped after just 2 or 3 bullets, but we also go down instantly in a single melee attack. Conversely, it takes 4 or 5 melee attacks to defeat a single Locust. Just defeating the first 2 enemies in the game took a high level of teamwork. The very next room has 3 more enemies, and one of them is protected inside a barricade. We run over to the right side of the room where the one enemy in the barricade can't see us, and we lure over the other 2. From here, the plan is for me to run out, hit one of the enemies, and run back again. If I get dropped while running away, Ash will revive me and we'll both run back and hide. Unlike us, the Locusts don't seem to recover health over time. So, with some patience, we can repeat this over and over until both Locusts are dead. That leaves the last one inside his barricade. This is a frag grenade tutorial. It's intended that we throw a grenade over the top and blow up the enemy. In fact, Dom even says this out loud when this is the last enemy remaining. We tried to melee him through the gap in the barricade, but it just doesn't hit him. The game simply doesn't progress until this Locust is dead. So it looks like we're forced to throw a grenade over the top. I really wanted to find a way past this without using the grenade though, so I tried something that I will only ever do as a last resort. I restarted the game in single player, defeated all the same Locust again, and hoped that AI Dom would shoot the Locust for us. Unfortunately, Dom still tells Marcus to use a grenade, and he won't move from this spot until we do. I had another idea. If AI Dom tries to shoot one of the other 2 Locusts, maybe it's possible for him to hit the one inside the barricade by accident. If that happens enough times, maybe AI Dom can kill the barricade Locust before the other 2. It was a long shot, but I had to try. I'm sure you've already guessed it, but this wasn't going to happen. I was clutching at straws. But then, this happened. The other 2 Locusts were dead. Dom told Marcus to use a grenade, but Dom was still shooting towards the barricade Locust. I didn't know if this was because I was standing so far away, but I didn't want to take any chances, so I stayed right here behind this table until AI Dom killed the last Locust. I know getting the AI to shoot the enemies is a bit controversial in this run, which is why it's a last resort. Since I never fired a bullet or threw a grenade, I'm still okay with this. Anyway, back in co-op mode, and this is our first checkpoint. The The locust cuts a hole in this door. We figured we'd get right up against the door to get through quickly, but it turns out you get flattened and die instantly if you do that. We waited at the sides of the door next time and sprinted our way through the door as soon as we could. This actually skips a few locusts as another door closes behind us, trapping them inside the room we were just in. We now need to defeat all the locusts outside, and we're very outnumbered. Sometimes a locust will get brave and approach us. All we need to do is pincer attack, and this usually results in a kill. We also noticed that if we hug a wall on the opposite side of a locust, the locust tends to vault over the wall, and we can use that to bait some of the enemies out. This is the part of the game we receive the most useful weapon in this run, the Lancer. It's a gun, but it has a built-in chainsaw. If we hold the melee button, we rev up the chainsaw. If we walk into a locust as we're revving, we get an instant kill. The only issue with this is if we take a hit while revving, we get stunned, which resets our rev. This also leaves us very vulnerable, but a pincer approach usually gets the job done. Something else we need to be careful of are the grub holes. They are big holes that open up in the ground and several locusts climb out all at once. In a casual playthrough, throwing a grenade inside the hole closes it up immediately, but if we can kill all the locusts that come out of the hole, then the hole will close up automatically as well. If a locust does decide to vault over a wall towards us, we can catch him in a chainsaw kill right away. This is also the first point in the game where we're joined by a couple of AI characters. We can't stop the AI from shooting, but they're hardly the best at it, so we let it slide. Besides, sometimes the AI will get the odd chainsaw kill too. I'm making things sound a bit easy, but it's far from the truth. We really can't take many hits before we die. In fact, sometimes it's possible to die mid-chainsaw animation. We're pinned by a locust using a turret, but we can get around him and cut him down from the side. The next area has many more locusts to kill. If we take our time, we can pick each one of them off one at a time. But before we can even kill all of them, several more grub holes open up all around. Each one has several more locusts climbing out of it. We were stuck here for a while, and what's worse, if we're too close to a hole when it opens, we fall inside, which results in an instant game over. After many deaths, we did eventually find a solution. When the first grub hole opens up, we need to be ready with our chainsaws revved. This is because we can get insta-kills on each locust as they reach the surface, and as long as we take it in turns, we can kill them all in turn. The only issue with this strat is that the holes appear in a seemingly random order, so we need to be observant and be quick when running from hole to hole. Things got a bit messy at the end. We were just reviving each other back and forth over and over, but we did eventually get the job done. Now we have the first instance of the two characters being forced to split up. During these sequences, if one of us goes down, it's game over because we can't revive each other. And the AI can't revive us either. Each of us is joined by an AI, and sometimes they can be helpful, but most of the time they just run around like headless chickens. One player is pinned by another turret, and the other is supposed to shoot the locust on the turret through the window. We can't do that, but we can distract that locust while the other player runs in for the chainsaw kill. We reunite, which means we can revive each other again. There is yet another turret, as well as an enemy shooting down at us from the floor above. We can just kick down the door that leads to the locust on the upper floor and give him a surprise of his life. For some reason, the locust on the turret decided to approach us by himself, so he didn't last long. I don't know if it's just me, but I keep thinking the AI are locusts and I keep trying to chainsaw them. Now we need to liberate a building full of locusts. There's also a turret outside. We found that the best way is to enter the door on the right and make our way through the inside from there. This also baits the locust on the turret away from it. This is when we found out that you can actually chainsaw the locust through the cover sometimes. We even timed a perfect cinematic dual chainsaw kill in stereo to round off the fight. We see a new enemy type, the Wretch. They're small but quick and numerous. They can be chainsawed, but it's much better to hit them with a punch instead since they die in a single hit. This means we need to switch weapons since revving the chainsaw and punching is the same button. Then we see another new enemy, the Cedar. It's massive and anything it hits us with will be an instant kill. Unfortunately, it's immune to all weapons except one. 1. The Hammer of Dawn. I tried to avoid using the Hammer of Dawn, but it's immune to melee damage. Trust me, I was punching it for ages. This is a weapon that we first get access to now. It's a laser that calls for the satellites above to smite whatever we aim at. This means it can only be used outside and at only certain points of the game. So we have no choice but to use the Hammer of Dawn. That makes this the first enemy in the run that requires a ranged weapon. Hammer of Dawn kills are basically scripted events in this game, so we'll just have to accept it. There are a total of 3 seeders in this chapter, and the game wants us to use the Hammer of Dawn on all 3. However, in the original Gears of War, there is a glitch that allows us to skip parts of the game. It only works if you're running the game at 60 FPS, and it takes advantage of the fact that grenades break the game when the frame rate is too high. This footage is from a member of the Gears Speedrun community, Jaws of Woe. They start the setup back before encountering the wretches for the first time. All you need to do is hug a chest-high wall, cook a grenade, vault over the wall without throwing the grenade, and this zips you back to the wall. Now, if you walk away, hug a different chest-high wall, and then swap to a normal weapon, you get zipped back to the first wall again. We then vault over this wall once more, and the game tries to zip you back to the second chest-high wall. But because there's another wall in the way, you bump into it, bounce off it, and land somewhere else. It's possible to use this glitch to land out of bounds, and from here you can find ways to skip certain event triggers. In this footage, the glitch is used to skip the first meeting with Cole, the encounter with the wretches, but more importantly, the first 2 seeders in the chapter. If we travel ahead far enough, we hit another event trigger later in the chapter. I'm sure that more skips like this are possible all over the place in the original game, but we perform this challenge run on the reloaded version of the game. This means we don't have access to these kind of skips, so we had to resort to killing the seeders with the Hammer of Dawn. But it is cool to know that it is possible to skip a few of them. It was this part of the run that I started to notice that the game doesn't always know how to handle co-op. When one character touches a checkpoint, the game tries to teleport the other character to the same checkpoint. But sometimes I appear further back for some reason. I wonder if we can abuse this later somehow. Anyway, now we find ourselves in a firefight from atop a balcony. There are turrets up here that the game wants us to use, and the game won't move on until all the enemies down below are dead. We figured we could wait for the AI to take out the locust below, but they seem to be more preoccupied with shooting the exploding floaty things. This is still helpful as those things are an instant kill if they get close to us, so it seems like we're forced to shoot the locust from above, or we would if not for this glitch. There is a button on the controller called the Point of Interest button, and it's usually mapped to Y or triangle. Holding this button points the camera to the next point of interest, but if there isn't one, it will point at either our co-op partner or the AI. If we man the turret on the far left and then hold down the Point of Interest button, the camera points at our partner, and depending on where we're aiming the turret, the building we're on actually starts to deload. If we're able to let go of the turret at the right time, we can actually get dropped down to the ground floor. Now we can fight the locust up close with melee, although we are still outnumbered. However, if we run far enough to the side of the road, the entire ground deloads. As long as we don't move, we stay suspended in midair. But as soon as the locusts move, they fall to their deaths one by one, and the game gives us the win. There's nothing we can do about the Act 1 finale though. It's a fight against a berserker, and a Hammer of Dawn is required to defeat this. We did try to defeat it with just melee attacks, but it just doesn't work. We just need to accept that sometimes the Hammer of Dawn is going to be mandatory. Act 2 starts with us being forced to split up again, and we're attacked by another new enemy, boomers. They wield rocket launchers, and they're blocking our path, but thankfully the AI will eventually kill them for us if we wait long enough. It seems we're going to have to rely on the AI for all the boomers that we run into. The same goes for the sniper locusts that shoot us from the windows. We encounter another boomer. This one killed us a couple of times, but it's actually possible to skip it entirely. All we need to do is walk this way, which triggers a checkpoint, and then we let the boomer kill us. The game loads the checkpoint we just got, which despawns the boomer. We get pinned down by another turret. We can push a car towards it to use as cover, but the turret deals so much damage. It kills anyone before they can get close to it. We wait for the wretches to approach us to get them out of the way first, and then we use distraction strats to get close to the turret. This diverts his fire away from our allies, and we hope the AI is able to get enough clean shots in to take take him down. However, we don't need to do that. If we just run on ahead, we can get to the end of the level without killing the turret locust. The game just loads the next chapter. If we stay behind cover and turn this valve as quick as we can make it over the water no problem. Now the game introduces a new gimmick, the krill. If anyone stands in the dark for a few seconds, deadly bat-like creatures swarm them, killing them almost immediately. This doesn't incapacitate a player so they can be revived, it outright kills them. So if this happens to either player, we both go back to the last checkpoint. The game intends for us to shoot the propane tanks to make them explode and create fire and thus create light. We can get away with not shooting these propane tanks for a little while, but soon we come to a long stretch of road with a couple of propane tanks on it. It's much too far to run from light source to light source, and the krill kill us every time we try. I know the propane tanks aren't enemies, so you might consider it okay to shoot them, but neither of us have fired a single bullet yet, and I really want to keep it that way for as long as possible. Also, punching the propane tanks does nothing. It took a lot of trial and error, but this is what happened in the end. First, I ran ahead to aggro the enemies at the end of the road, but then I quickly came back before the krill could kill me. One of the locusts in the distance is wielding a turret. We run towards the propane tank, and if we're lucky, the turret will hit the propane tank before the krill can kill us. The explosion knocks us down, which is what we want. That way our ally can run into the light that we just created and pick us up. There's an awkward battle up next, and since we're not joined by the AI, it's up to us. But after the battle, there is a door in the shadows that we need to open. We're supposed to shoot the propane tank next to the door so we can approach it. We weren't sure what we were going to do, but as we were thinking about it, the door just opened. Then the propane tank exploded. I can only assume it was because a locust opened a door from the other side, but I'll take it. Our next obstacle is this dark alleyway. There's a closed door at the end of it, and the game wants us to shoot a propane tank behind the dumpster. We try to run to the door as quick as we could, but we don't even get a prompt to open the door. This seems to be because there is an enemy here that we cannot kill. Or maybe the door will open if we can destroy the propane tank behind the dumpster. Although, would you believe, for some reason on the original version of this game on the Xbox 360, this door is open automatically. From the very start of the area, you can just sprint straight down the stairs and go right through it. It's an odd version difference. We couldn't do this ourselves because we don't have access to the original version, but I am happy knowing that we still would never have fired a single bullet if we were playing the Xbox 360. That brings us to the good thing about the krill. They will also attack the locust if they ever stand in the darkness. It's surprising just how often the locusts get themselves killed like this, but it becomes a vital part of our strategy, especially when we get heavily outnumbered. There's a long stretch of road in the dark, but we can just make it across without needing to use the propane tank. The chapter ends with a grub hole. 6 locusts climb out, 3 at a time. We tried to chainsaw them all, but we get swarmed too quickly. We decided to hide far away and let them all climb out, and then hope they wander into the darkness. And you know what? It worked. The next challenge is getting to the fuel station. It's at the bottom of a long, dark, sloped road. It's intended that we shoot the propane tank to set a car on fire, and then we roll the car down the hill, making sure to run along it to stay in its light. We're stuck at the top of the slope under a street lamp. We tried making a run for it, and we even rolled at the end for a bit of extra distance, but we never made it to the bottom. We weren't even really close. We tried to use the chainsaw on the propane tank, but that doesn't work either. Another idea was for one of us to distract the krill while the other made a run for it, but it turns out the krill can attack both players at once. I tried backtracking through the level, but the lights inside the building that we came through seemed to have turned off. We were stuck here in this spot for over an hour. Things were looking bleak, but then we made an interesting discovery. If I walk back through this doorway, the game pauses for a few frames as it reloads the previous area. This even zips us forward a little bit too. This particular load only triggers once, but if we die and respawn, we can trigger the load again. I didn't think anything of this at first, but then I noticed that Dom gets zipped forward, even if Marcus is the one that touches the load trigger. From this, a plan was born. I would run down the slope and give Ash the signal to touch the load trigger right before the krill can get me. This does result in a small zip forward, but it wasn't enough to reach the light. After some more testing, I discovered that if we roll through the load trigger, we get zipped quite a bit further. I think you know where this is going. Ash gets in position position by the doorway, we run down the hill, give the signal, and then roll right before the krill can reach us. We get the mother of all zips, putting us right at the bottom of the hill. And what's more, this is a checkpoint, which means Marcus is teleported down here with us. We'll call this the load push. We get attacked by a whole bunch of enemies, including boomers, but we're also joined by a single AI NPC, so we let him do most of the work. He even solos a boomer. The very next level is a forced driving section. We need to use the spotlight to take down the krill. This isn't technically melee, but it's also technically not a weapon either. It's just a searchlight. We don't have much choice though, there's no way through this section without using this light, so we'll just move on. The Act 2 finale is one big firefight against a swarm of locusts. They're all on lower ground while we're stuck on higher ground. We have no choice but to let the AI take care of all the locusts while we stay behind cover. If the AI ever get knocked down, it's our job to pick them back up again and then go back into hiding. There are several boomers at the end of this fight. Normally we could kill them all at once by dropping an oil tanker on top of them, but that requires shooting. If the AI struggle to see their targets, sometimes we need to give them a push in the right direction. Literally. It took the AI over 25 minutes, but they did eventually win this fight. Act 3 introduces lambent wretches. They're the same as normal wretches, except they explode when they die. This of course means we can't chainsaw them as we'll just get killed, but we can punch them still and then quickly roll away before the explosion goes off. I got tempted by these cog tags only for the floorboards to break away under my feet. The wretches down here killed me instantly, but instead of Ash risking his life to revive me, he proceeds on to the next checkpoint, which warps me through time and space to his position. This is where we tried to punch a boomer to death. They can't be killed by the chainsaws, and punching them didn't seem to do much better. Thankfully, the AI were around to kill them for us. Now we run into another problem. Both of us are stuck on mine carts, in sort of an on-rails shooting section. We can crouch inside, but we can't melee attack at all. We thought we could just stay hidden throughout, but then some lambent wretches land on our heads and we die instantly. There is no skip for this section as far as I know. When Ash gets inside the minecart, if I'm not close to the minecart, the game drags me across the area and even through the wall towards the minecart. I tried messing with all the buttons during this to see if I could break out of it somehow, but no luck. Also, there's an invisible wall here for some reason. I couldn't find a way to make this useful though. With no AI to help us during this rail section, this seems to be impossible to survive without shooting the wretches. But then, while we were testing things, we ended up quitting the game. We reloaded back in, and instead of putting me in control of Dom, the game had me sort of spectate him instead. There was a button prompt for me to take control, but if I don't press it, then Dom seems to be immortal, which makes sense because if this were single player, Marcus wouldn't have been able to revive Dom during this section. I am fully aware of how questionable this strategy is. After all, what's stopping us from doing this throughout the entire game? This would essentially be a single player only run at this point, but this is still the best we're gonna get for this minecart section. Although, as soon as the cart ride was over, the game put me back in control of Dom automatically. Weird. We're still separated though, and Marcus gets attacked by a horde of wretches, while Dom has a nice easy stroll. The idea is that Dom and Cole would shoot the enemies from where they are to help Marcus and Baird from a distance, but without being able to do that, Ash gets overwhelmed quickly. The simple solution to this is for Dom to run on ahead and trigger a checkpoint, and this warps Marcus to the same room. There are two boomers in this room, but the AI takes care of them if we wait long enough. We soon get separated from the AI though, so Ash and I are forced to take on the upcoming enemies by ourselves for a while. There is a boomer up ahead, but we can actually just ignore this one completely and run to the next checkpoint instead. This starts a horrible section of the game where Ash and I get separated from each other. We can see each other's paths, but in this run we have no way of helping each other. There are so many enemies on both paths. There are even wretches hiding on the ceiling. We try to take things as meticulously as possible, luring the enemies out one at a time whenever we could. Annoyingly, the enemies from the other player's path can still shoot us if they get the chance. Since you can choose which player goes down which path, we tried both paths numerous times, but every single time one of us would die at some point, and we both had to start all over again. This is easily the most difficult part of the run so far in terms of actual combat. Eventually, I figured that if our slow and methodical approach wasn't working, then it was time to try the exact opposite. I just sprinted all the way along along my path while Ash stayed hidden at the start of his path. I just went around all the enemies and vaulted over all the walls to avoid them. I couldn't believe it, but this actually worked. I hit a checkpoint and Marcus is warped over to me. Now there is a narrow cave full of enemies. If we wait long enough, they approach us one at a time and right into our chainsaws. Now we're forced to fight a corpser, a giant spider-like creature. If we try to punch it, we die instantly. If we try to run by it, we also die instantly. The only way to defeat the corpser is to shoot its body to stun him and then shoot it in the face to make it stagger backwards. We can't do any of that. I restarted the fight in single player to find out if AI Dom could solo the corpser for me, but if the fight lasts too long, we just spontaneously combust for some reason. There is an interesting solution to this boss fight, and it was discovered many years ago in the original version of the game. If we go back a couple chapters, we can see a stream of water right here. We wedge ourselves as close to the edge as possible, and we shuffle even closer to the edge if we aim our weapon as we move. Once we're in position, if we roll against the metal fence to our left, we can fall over the edge and land out of bounds. In the original game, we can use this to fall all the way down and land in the area beyond the corpser boss fight, which skips it entirely. We tried this on the reloaded version of the game, and whereas we can still get out of bounds in the exact same way, falling down has some bizarre visual effects. We fall for a long time, pausing the game doesn't seem to load any of the environment around us, so we're just stuck creating this work of art instead. Something we can do in the latest version of the game is this. After a little while, the corpser slams into the ground to break a bit of the floor behind us. If we're standing on that bit of floor, the game automatically moves us forward. However, if we stand in the very bottom right and roll backwards right as the slam happens, the game pushes us up the wall instead. I tried to use this to skip the corpser, but unfortunately we still can't get beyond it even this high up. Plus, one wrong move up here and we fall down into the void again. This means we had no choice but to defeat the corpser normally. But again, if we were playing the original version of the game, we still wouldn't have fired a single bullet or used a single grenade yet. And I think that's worth something. Right after that, we need to win one more firefight against a few locusts, but we've reunited with the AI, so we get through just fine. Act 4 kicks off with another big firefight. We're massively outnumbered, as usual, and this time they have snipers at the end of the courtyard. We want that sniper gone as soon as we can, so we sneak our way around the courtyard to get rid of that one first. We can even use this doorway to filter the approaching enemies if any of them are feeling brave. Unfortunately, the AI gets downed very easily during this fight, so we find ourselves having to pick them back up a lot. In fairness, the reason they go down so easily are the torque bow locust. Their arrows explode, which is enough to one-shot any of us. Something happened here that I never knew could happen. The big stone cog in the center of the courtyard broke and then crushed the locust. If we do manage to defeat all of these, a couple of boomers show up. I'm still not sure if boomers take damage from melee attacks, but it seems we need to rely on the AI once more. This part was a challenge, but the next section is an absolute nightmare. Ash and I have been separated once again. I am on the upper floor in a crumbling building with Cole, and Marcus is on the outside with Baird. On my path, there's a locust with a torque bow and about 5 or 6 wretches, and then a final locust with a shotgun. Would you believe, compared to Ash, I have it easy. He has to deal with multiple locusts, more than one of which are wielding torque bows. There's also a cedar that spawns outside. I can kill the cedar with the Hammer of Dawn through the window, but when I do this, another grub hole opens up at the bottom, which gives Ash even more locusts to fight. Even if I can get to the end of my path, there's a valve here, and I can't turn it until all the enemies outside have been defeated. At this point, I am next to useless, as I'm not allowed to shoot the enemies outside through the window. I tried to distract the enemies as best I could, but that's not super helpful. Cole can shoot the locust through the windows, but he's not great at it. Half the time, Cole stays too far back or just stares at a wall. This isn't a problem for me, I'm able to clear out all the locusts on my path, but if I want to get Cole into position to provide Ash with some cover fire, it's a battle to get him to move. Bear just runs straight into danger as soon as the grub hole opens up and gets himself killed. I forgot how annoying the AI is in this game. I found that if I wait for Cole to go go on ahead at the start of the checkpoint and stay behind him, he tends to actually get into more helpful vantage points. Also, something else we can do, since Ash is the host, he is able to issue commands to the AI by holding L1 and pressing the corresponding face button. This is useful when telling Baird to attack, but obviously did not work when trying to tell Baird to regroup. We need to move Cole to the next section of the building so he can help cover Marcus from the windows. We found that all we needed to do was Marcus had to go ahead a little bit and then retreat into hiding again. This prompted Cole to move on ahead, and now he is finally helping again. Baird has now decided to just stand there doing nothing, but he is at least drawing aggro. After a while, Cole takes down most of the Locust. There are just 2 left. Cole can't seem to get a shot on them, and with Baird's AI broken, it was up to Ash. He waited for when the Locust needed to reload before catching them with a chainsaw. After they're dead, I can turn the valve up top to open the gate for Ash, and we can finally reach the next checkpoint. This is when we realize that melee damage is different depending on the weapon you're holding. We noticed this because these wretches took 2 hits instead of the usual 1, and this seemed to be because I was holding this specific weapon. I switched back to my pistol and then I was one-shotting them again. For most of this run, this wasn't super relevant since we were using the chainsaw every chance we could, but from now on we'll keep this in mind. Ash and I are still separated for the time being, so taking things slow and methodical is the safest way forward. I even managed to get one of those chainsaw kills through the chest-high walls finally. I get pinned by another turret, but Ash is able to make his way behind the turret and kill the Locust for us. This brings us to the part I was concerned about. We're supposed to ignite these propane tanks to blow up the gate blocking our way. We can't punch the propane tanks as we learned back in Act 2. I assumed we would either need to break the rules or find a new skip. But then Ash decided to rev his chainsaw next to the tank and it exploded. I swear we tried this back on Act 2 with the propane tank inside the car and it didn't work. So I looked into it. It turns out chainsaws do in fact ignite the propane tanks, but with the one exception of the propane tank inside the car. So at least our load push was still necessary. Although, with this knowledge, maybe this means we can get that propane tank behind the dumpster back in Act 2. Sure enough, if we side roll down the steps and quickly chainsaw the tank, the explosion knocks us down before the krill can kill us. Our partner revives us and the door is now open. Anyway, back to Act 4. Now we need to defeat all the enemies in this small courtyard. There are several wretches and 3 locusts that emerge from a grub hole. This alone is barely worth mentioning. There are plenty of walls to hide behind, which means it's fairly simple to sneak up on all the enemies. The hard part is that after the locusts are dead, 2 boomers break through a brick wall. There's no way of getting away from them this time. We need to defeat both of them or we can't progress. This is the first time we've been forced to defeat boomers without the help from AI. And did I mention that boomers can't be chainsawed? We did manage to get the boomers in position for one of them to shoot a rocket at the other one from behind if we aggro their fire, but annoyingly boomers can't deal friendly fire damage. We have no choice but to use our melee attacks to defeat them both. While Ash defeats the last locust from the grub hole, I can be ready for the boomers near the brick wall. The wall breaking doesn't hurt us, so we can walk straight through and see the boomers spawn in. The boomers won't attack us until they've walked through the broken wall, which means we can land a few melee hits on them first. The 2 strongest weapons for melee attacks in the game are the torque bow and the Nasher shotgun. There just so happens to be a Nasher shotgun on the ground right here. This is perfect because the shotgun has another strange quirk to it. According to the speedrunners, the shotgun can sometimes deal double melee damage. It seems that most agree this is a bug, but we'll take it. It's just a shame that there's only one shotgun between us. We work together to body block the boomer before he can get out of the room, punching him the entire time. This worked perfectly and we took down one of the boomers. Now we just need to pincer attack the other one and take it in turns to hit him while he reloads his rocket. There is another berserker following this fight. It's intended that we lure the berserker to the end of the greenhouse, have it knock down a pillar to break a hole in the nearby wall, and then defeat the berserker with the Hammer of Dawn. After which the game will then allow us to turn a valve that puts out a fire that blocks the hole in the wall. Just like with the first berserker, it seems like we're forced to break the main rule again. But then, with some help from the Gears of War speedrun community, we made a discovery. This explanation might sound a bit basic at first, but stick with it, I promise it's worth it in the end. When we first arrive at this building, as we make our way through it, before the berserker spawns, there are several triggers that we hit on the way. A couple of them trigger lines of dialogue between Dom and Marcus. There's also a trigger that forces us to walk slowly for a few seconds. This will be important. And then we walk through some empty corridors for a while until we reach the greenhouse section. The last trigger will spawn the Berserker. As we run through the building, the Berserker will break down a couple of walls. The rubble that this leaves behind serves as a wall to prevent the players from backtracking. However, in co-op mode, it's possible for Dom to clip through this rubble with some precise movement, and if Marcus gives him a little push at the same time. Getting this clip is fairly precise, and we need to do it quick since the Berserker might kill us before long. Once Dom is on the other side of the rubble, they can now backtrack through the level, and now Marcus's job is to distract the Berserker. For some reason, all the triggers that we mentioned in the first part of the level have been reactivated. This means that as Dom backtracks, he activates all those triggers again, but in reverse order. So the first trigger he hits spawns a Berserker, which now means there are 2 Berserkers. Dom needs to backtrack all the way to the start of the chapter, luring the second Berserker all the way back there as well. On the way, Dom will hit that trigger that forces both players to walk slowly for a few seconds. We need to be ready for this, as this can make avoiding our own Berserker a bit more difficult. When the second Berserker is lured to the start of the chapter, Dom runs all the way back to Marcus as quick as he can. Doing this will deload the area at the start of the chapter, and if the second Berserker is still in that area, it falls through the floor and to its death. As far as the game is concerned, a Berserker died, so this unlocks the valve. Marcus quickly turns the valve to put out the fire, and just as I finished turning the valve, the original Berserker knocked me down. But thankfully, Dom is able to clip back in bounds very easily as the rubble is only solid from one side. As soon as he revives us, we sprint through the hole in the wall, kick down the door, and trigger a checkpoint. The Berserker has been skipped, and all it took was to spawn a second Berserker. We now face a horde of enemies across several areas back to back. These include wretches, cedar spawn, locust, and boomers. We can take them all down with melee attacks or with our chainsaws, except the cedar of course, but it seems like the game kills the cedar for us. This is definitely the most difficult stretch of the game so far when it comes to combat, but by this point Ash has also found a shotgun of his own, so that helps to make things a bit easier. We're still outnumbered by locust with shotguns and torque bows though. The best strategy is one of us distracts the enemy while the other sneaks up on them for the insta-kill. If neither one of us can safely move out of our cover to distract the enemy, we both stay behind cover until the locusts need to reload their guns, and then we run out to catch them with a chainsaw kill before they finish their reloads. There are 2 paths we can take to move on. The right side has a turret with little cover and the left side has a few enemies, and we'd rather that over the turret. This area is teeming with locusts in all directions. If we head towards any of them, the others tend to attack us from behind. We die very easily. A single melee attack or even being slightly too close to a grenade or torque bow. We died here many times. We've managed to whittle the enemies down to the final couple that stay on this bridge, and these ones just seem to have our number. However, once these are the final 2 enemies remaining, if we backtrack to where we accessed the area, another locust will open the metal gate that's blocking our way. Once we deal with that locust, we can just ignore the other 2 on the bridge and go through the metal gate and complete the chapter. There are even more locusts to get by, and they have the high ground. There are a couple of torque bow locusts as well as a boomer, but we can get by them all with a double shotgun beatdown. This is how I discovered that we can't melee the boomers in the legs from low ground. But once we were both on his level, he didn't last too long. There's a grub hole that opens up inside the Phoenix estate, and it deals damage from a surprisingly long range. There are plenty of locusts upstairs as well. The overall difficulty of this run is really ramping up. After a few deaths, we had an attempt where 2 of the locusts were huddled against each other. We pincered them to catch them both in stereo chainsaw kills. It's just as much of a struggle to travel through the house. We tend to use the doorways to funnel the locusts to thin their numbers, and we can rush any locust that we see reloading. One of the locusts seemed to get stuck on a closed door. He was trying to walk through it and he wasn't shooting us. I swiftly took advantage of this and cut him down. We soon see why he was trying to walk through this door. When we clear out the room, room, another locust bursts through that door from the other side. We're heavily outnumbered in the basement too, but there's plenty of hiding places and pincer opportunities. Back at the front of the building, there's a massive horde of locust outside, and they've set the building on fire. At first, we thought we would be forced to shoot the locust from the window, but after a minute or so, the locusts blow up the front door and pour inside the building. We can get overwhelmed quickly, but if we wait either side of the front door, we can get the jump on a few of the locusts as they try to enter. We certainly can't kill them all like this, and some will still get inside the building, but we can get the vast majority. That's when the boomer shows up. We looked into a great idea very quickly. Ash went back to the previous doorway and I got in some melee hits as he tried to enter the building. As the boomer's attention was on me, Ash got in a few melee hits of his own to the back, and this was enough to drop him. Next up, we need to enter the courtyard, but the door to the outside is blocked. To open this door, we're supposed to shoot the propane tank from a window on the upper floor, which then removes the blockage. I tried to hug the wall and crouch right where the propane tank was, in hopes that the locust would shoot the propane tank for us. It took a long while, but eventually an enemy did set off the propane tank, but for some reason this didn't remove the blockage in front of the door. This is actually a soft lock now, as there's no other way to remove the blockage, but then I noticed that you could climb on top of the sofa on the upper floor. From there, you can stand on the very edge of this piano. This next roll is very precise, but you can actually roll from the piano and through the open window. Sometimes I would land on the window ledge and we can't fall down, but with a good enough roll, you can go straight through the window and fall down to the courtyard. We're outnumbered down here, but if we're very quick, we can set off the propane tank with our chainsaw before we die. This unblocks the door to allow our partner to get through, and now we can fight the locust together. The chapter is capped off with 2 more boomers. I was prepared for another drag-out fight, but it turns out you can skip this fight entirely if you just run to the end of the garden. Act 5 starts with a big horde of locust. The AI do rejoin us, but the sheer number of enemies here results in a major challenge in survivability. The usual strategies seem a lot less effective than they used to be. The plan is to spot where several locusts spawn from and have us both be ready for them and cut them down one at a time. We get ambushed by a bunch of wretches. We kill all the ones we can, but a couple of them are stuck on the roof above us. I forgot how janky this game can be. The game won't advance until they're all dead, and we can't punch upwards, so that's another reload. There's another horde of enemies in the next section, and the AI are once again no longer with us. If we go too deep into the open area, we get gunned down by a turret from a window. Fortunately, we can take the stairs to reach that turret at the start of the fight and take down the 2 locusts up there. The sheer number of enemies outside is still daunting. I did find a good spot after a while though. It's right here. If we hide here for a while, the locust will eventually approach us one at a time, and one of us would be ready to make them pay for it. With some practice, we eliminate them all one after the other until there is only one left remaining. It's the one that came out of a grub hole, and he's stuck between the hole and a wall. Because of this, he can't move, but we also can't get close enough to kill him with the chainsaw. Even a melee with the shotgun doesn't reach him, even though we're just inches away, and then we die trying. I can't believe this happened. I came back with a vengeance on the next try, and I chainsawed an enemy through a door. We need an attempt where the locust doesn't get stuck there, which we do get after a few more reloads. This game's so janky, and I'm not just talking about Dom's bounce. These last 2 enemies are huddled together, and now their AI seems to be broken. So we just cut them both down. The pain doesn't end there. We have another horde to deal with in the very next area. Once again, we prioritize killing the locust on the turret. I love that you can chainsaw the same enemy at the same time if you time it right. I've never done it on purpose, they're all just happy accidents. Cutscene Marcus tanks several boom shots to the face somehow. We won't get away with that during gameplay. This is now the 3rd time we've fought 2 boomers at once without the AI's help, but only the 2nd time that we've had to actually kill them both. This is why we've kept our shotguns from the first time, and they soon go down after a pincer attack. Now we begin what will be the most difficult chapter in the run so far, and it's not even close. Comedy of Errors. It starts off easy, the enemies just jump into our chainsaws. We soon find ourselves trapped inside a small room with a bunch of enemies firing at us, and a giant brumac charging at us. We can't get outside, so this looks hopeless. Except, if we just wait here long enough, the game continues regardless. After that, we enter the theatre, and this is where the pain begins. We're forced to split up, and one of us heads up the stairs to a small balcony area where there is only one single enemy. The other player must travel around the entire bottom floor where where there is a Cedar, 2 turrets, a bunch of locusts, and 5 wretches. There are even a bunch of snipers that neither of us can reach, aiming at both of us the whole time. Since we're inside, we can't use the Hammer of Dawn, so the intended method of dealing with the Cedar is to shoot the chains above it to drop the stage set on its head. In this run, the player on the balcony is rendered largely useless. All they can do is watch the player down below get slaughtered over and over. There is a big hole in the ground near the balcony, but we can't fall down. The player down below gets attacked from behind by 5 wretches as soon as they touch these steps. We can deal with this just fine, but we can't go much further since we're pinned by 2 turrets. It is possible to lure the locust to us if we stay back enough, and whereas a one-on-one fight with the locust is still dangerous, it's far better than going out into the open stage area. But even if we do kill the locust that wander towards us, the only way to advance is to head right into the 2 turrets, and that's just not happening. However, there is another way. From the start of the bottom floor, there's a pile of rubble to our right. It's supposed to block our path and force us to go down the left path. But if we hug against the sandbags next to the rubble and move as far to the right as we can, it's possible to aim a roll to the right and land on the floor beneath. This is definitely not intended, and if we're quick, we can get inside the room on the right without being killed by the turrets. There are still a couple of normal locust enemies in here. We're able to use our usual strats to kill them, but get this. Every time we kill one, another one crawls out of the ground to replace it. Not out of a grub hole, but straight through the floor. I killed about 7 or 8 of them before they finally killed me. Also, if the wretches, Cedar, turrets, snipers, and other locusts weren't enough already, an extra grub hole opens up if we get too close to the turrets, and some of the locusts inside there have torque bows. I tried so many times to solo all of the locusts down here, and if you exclude the 2 locusts on the turrets, I did eventually do it. It took a week of practice, but I got there. Fun fact, when all the locusts from the grub hole die, the snipers all despawn too. They disappear right in front of our eyes. Now, even if we were able to reach the turrets without dying, one of the turrets is on top of the stage itself, and there's no intended way of getting up there. There is a non-intended way. We need to vault over these seats to land on top of the seats ahead. Then we can roll on top of the rubble to the right, and from here we can reach the stage. But doing that while under fire from the turret itself would be impossible. I tried this on casual difficulty as a test, and I did manage to pull it off, but all this did was prove that we have to kill the Cedar for the game to move on. Unless we can find a skip, it seems like we have no choice but to shoot the locust on the turrets. We decided to see if it was possible to skip the theatre section entirely. Before we see the Brumac, there is a way to get out of bounds. We roll from the top of these steps, and we can land on the railing. We walk along the railing, and now we can fall down to the ground behind the wall. We're not meant to be here, which is why one of the brick walls back here isn't solid. We only get a small section out of bounds to explore, since we can't fall over the edge here. However, if one player stands close to the edge, the other player can squeeze between them and the edge. Once we're hanging over the edge, we roll into our partner and we fall over the edge, and even further out of bounds. There's an invisible floor down here, and we can run around on this floor for miles. There's even a frying pan out here for some reason. I guess someone dropped it in the void one day. We can even stand directly underneath the theatre. We can see the stage and the Cedar, but unfortunately there's no way to hit a checkpoint when we're this low down. Shame. But then we had another idea. When we first arrive at the theatre section, both players are standing at the bottom of some stairs. As soon as one player gets close enough to the stairs, they trigger a cutscene. Following the cutscene, the players are forced to split up. So if we could just bypass the cutscene trigger, we would never get split up. That was the thinking, but the result we got was way better. First things first, here's how to bypass the cutscene trigger. When Marcus gets knocked down, he falls forward slightly. Dom does not fall forward, he stays on the spot when he gets knocked down. If Marcus gets knocked down and falls forward into a cutscene trigger, the cutscene doesn't trigger. The only way for Marcus to knock himself down is with his own grenades, which feels like a rule break, but at least we're not damaging the enemy with them. If Marcus falls and lands directly next to the banister, he's in the right spot. From here, Dom can get just close enough to pick Marcus back up again, but not quite close enough to hit the cutscene trigger. Now, Marcus is on his feet and on the other side of the cutscene trigger. Since the cutscene has not been triggered, the 2 doors are both open and they will stay open. Marcus is now free to enter both of these doors and fight the locusts that spawn on the other side. What makes this easier than the normal method is that the Seeder's AI doesn't activate, so we don't have to deal with its floating explodey things anymore. Not only that, but the 2 locusts on the turrets don't spawn at all. All the other locusts still spawn in though, as well as the wretches, so it's still not easy, but it's a lot easier now that we don't have to deal with the Seeder or the turrets. From here, Marcus's job is to defeat all the wretches and all the locusts. Marcus is able to move freely between the bottom and the top floors to get this done. The grub hole still opens up after getting too close to the turrets, so we'll need to take those locusts out too. This also means killing all the locusts that climb out of the invisible grub hole too. They do finally stop spawning after about 10 of them. Dom's job is to stay right where he is. If Dom approaches the stairs, the Seeder and the turret locust will spawn in. It's a tall task for Marcus, but he does finally kill all the enemies. The theatre is now safe, but the doors that lead to the back of the theatre still won't open, meaning we can't proceed. Even though the Seeder isn't active, we still need to shoot the chains to drop the stage on top of the Seeder. The game won't move on until we do. We're still not shooting an enemy though, so I think we can let this slide. This opens a door both on the balcony and on the bottom floor that lead backstage. Marcus heads through the door on the bottom floor, killing the 2 enemies inside, and turns a valve. There is another valve behind the upper door, and this is where Dom finally comes into play. He's been standing at the bottom of these steps the entire time, but now he needs to trigger the cutscene that separates the 2 players. This puts both players at the start of their respective paths, but most of the enemies are already dead. The exception is the 2 locusts on the turrets have now spawned, but the door on the top floor is already open. Dom can run straight through, reach his valve, turn it, and trigger a checkpoint to end the chapter. So basically what we've done is allow Marcus to deal with the horde of locusts without having to worry about taking damage from the Seeder or the turrets. We can even see the turret locust still alive from backstage. Now, Marcus was forced to use a grenade to damage himself, but it was either that or we shoot the turret locust. Regardless of which method we choose, we're still forced to shoot the chains above the Seeder. Nothing can change that. Either way, we can get through this chapter without shooting a single enemy. So I'm taking that as a win, and I'm very glad to see the back of this chapter. We are finally reunited with each other, and the AI finally feel like rejoining us too. Now that we're no longer separated, we can pick each other back up again, which feels amazing. The good times don't last though. After defeating a few enemies, the game wants us to defeat another Seeder. It's down below on the ground level. There are some propane tanks next to it that we're supposed to shoot. The explosion will defeat the Seeder, but I'm already annoyed that we had to use a gun to defeat the previous Seeder. There are no other enemies attacking us, so I take this time to look around the area we're in just in case. All the while, Dom is shouting, "Shoot the tanks," literally every 6 seconds. I wandered all around the small area looking for anything. I was on the stairs that we used to get here in the first place, and suddenly, after just over 10 minutes, the game suddenly considered the Seeder to be defeated. The mission crossed itself off on my screen, and the game continued on as the bridge dropped down for us. The Seeder is definitely still alive, the propane tanks are even still there, but the Seeder has also stopped spawning the exploding floaty things, so I have no idea what happened. The game seems to be just as confused as I am though, because Dom is still shouting "shoot the tanks" every 6 seconds, despite the fact that we're moving on through the level. Even after hitting the next checkpoint, Dom is still shouting "shoot the tanks." He doesn't stop until we run into this boomer a few minutes later. The leading theory is that this one particular Seeder encounter has a failsafe that gives you the win after 10 minutes. And no, this does not work on the Seeder in Comedy of Errors. I kept it alive for hours with no sign of progress. If anyone has any other ideas how we skipped that Seeder, please let me know. Thankfully, once we get down to ground level, the Seeder isn't here, just a bunch of wretches and locusts instead. We figured we'd lure the wretches inside the building so we didn't have to deal with them, and the turret at the same time. But Cole clearly ate his Weetabix this morning, and he killed about 6 of them by himself. A couple of boomers soon put Cole back in line though. We've still got our shotguns though, so a pincer attack soon sorts them out. After a few chainsaw kills, we enter the power station. There are many more locusts here, ready to greet us. This is when we notice that the locusts can't shoot us and walk down the stairs at the same time. So we just stood on the bottom of the stairs and the locust ran right into our chainsaw. Once we've cleared out all the locusts we can reach, we're left with one final boomer on top of a bridge. Devastatingly, the game will not advance until that boomer is dead. We can't get up there and he will never come down. In the end, I got around this by playing this chapter instead single player and hoping AI Dom would kill the boomer for us. His AI is weird though, sometimes Dom would just completely ignore the boomer, but I did eventually find a good spot to stand and this prompted Dom to shoot the boomer until it died. The next chapter is a boss fight against the Brumac. We're supposed to shoot the guns on its arms. You better believe I tried punching this thing in the legs and it doesn't do any damage. Plus we get dropped immediately if it touches us as it walks. I also tried this boss fight in single player to see if AI Dom can do anything. AI Dom does seem to do some damage to the gun arms though, at least he does for the brief time that he can stay on his feet. The Brumac always seems to beeline for AI Dom for some reason. One time I managed to get the Brumac stuck on this wall, but since Dom was already down, we couldn't get any damage out of this. I tried again before Dom could get knocked down, I got the Brumac stuck again, but annoyingly Dom just stood there doing nothing. It's not like I can just keep reviving Dom over and over until we win either. The Brumac's guns deal so much damage we die in seconds. Even if we hug against the stone cylinders, the Brumac can just shoot over the top of them. Plus the Brumac's physical attack is an instant kill. I even tried this on casual difficulty as a test. I was able to survive for much longer, maybe over half an hour, but despite Dom shooting it a lot, the Brumac never seemed to take any real damage. Maybe this is possible if you can survive the fight for hours and revive Dom 100 times, but I will never know. We did try to blow ourselves up to skip the trigger for the fight, just like in Comedy of Errors, and this does work. However, the next act is triggered by actually defeating the Brumac, so all we can do is wander the empty boss area with nothing to do. In the end, we had to resort to reloading the chapter and using our guns to defeat the boss. It's a shame, but my cope is that this boss fight wasn't even in the original version of the game, it was added in later versions. After clearing out the wretches and the locust on the train platform, the train turns up with a bunch more locust on it. Hilariously though, we can chainsaw the locust through the open train windows. Bet they didn't see that coming. Soon the next cutscene plays before we've even finished killing them all, which is fine by me. We're on board the train now, and once again we're severely outnumbered by locust. It's the berserker we probably should be worried about though, except this is actually the easiest berserker in the game. All we have to do is lure it to the last car on the train and then hit the release button to disconnect the car. If we're not fast enough though, the berserker shows off its long jump. Where's your god now? We tried again, and this time the berserker fell just short on the jump and fell to his death. After a few more locust-infested cars, we're supposed to climb onto the roof of the train and gun down the flying Reaver enemies. We even provided a couple of turrets to help us do just that. The game doesn't move on until the Reavers are all dead, and a locked door prevents us from reaching the next car. I tried this section in single player to see if AI Dom would take the Reavers down on his own, but he doesn't even climb the ladder to reach the roof. I stood here for a while where the enemies can't shoot me, and I had to think. As I was doing this, I noticed a few locusts riding on an invisible Reaver. Eventually their Reaver caught up to them. This wasn't helpful, I just thought it was funny. What is helpful though is this. If one player stands on the left side of the turret on the left, and the other player rotates that turret to the left, we can get pushed up and onto the railing. From here, we need to walk a tightrope towards the next train car. It's not easy though. We need to get dangerously close to the edge to squeeze by, and we need to be quick before the Reavers kill us. From here, we drop down to the next car. Dom is still stuck, but Marcus can proceed on his own. Due to the skip, the train never enters the tunnel. After a while, Marcus triggers the next checkpoint, and Dom instant transmissions over to us. Now we fight waves of lambent wretches. It's a tough battle considering they explode upon death, and we need to defeat them all before our robot Jack can open a door. Except one time I touched the door, Jack disappeared in front of my eyes, and we were able to just move on, so I accidentally skipped the wretch section somehow. This brings us to the final boss against General Ram, and this was one of the most difficult bosses I have ever fought in any challenge run. First off, Ram is wielding a turret, but he's carrying it with him, and this kills us in just a couple of shots. Also, he's surrounded by krill that protects him from all damage. Ram can send his krill to attack us, plus there's flying krill in the sky that will also attack us. If any of these krill reach us, they will kill us instantly if we're not next to a light source. It works the same just as it did back in Act 2. If one player gets killed by the krill, it's game over. If all that isn't bad enough, there are also locusts on Reavers flying alongside the train that shoot at us. In a normal playthrough, hitting Ram with an explosive would remove the krill from his body temporarily, and you can use use that time to get some gunshots in. There's even a turret near the back of the train that can be used to deal huge damage. We don't have that option. The only way for us to deal any damage in this run is to bait Ram into sending his krill towards us, and then we use that brief time to get in a melee hit before the krill can return to his body. We need to make sure to do this while also being close to a light source, or the krill he sends will just kill us anyway. We sometimes have enough time to get in 2 melee hits during this time, but it's very risky to do so, because even just touching Ram's body knocks us out instantly. It's also not super obvious what parts of the train is considered to be in the light, because in this version of the game, this battle takes place at dusk instead of at night. Fortunately, Ram has a tell when he's about to send the krill towards one of us. He points at his target, but sometimes when he points, it's to send the krill in the sky down to us. There are plenty of cheese strategies that we found online. For example, you can get Ram stuck sometimes, which also breaks his AI. This doesn't help us in a melee only run though, because if Ram gets stuck like this, he won't send his krill away anymore. Plus, if we punch Ram while he's stuck, he becomes unstuck. We can actually punch him anytime we want, even if the krill are protecting him. He won't take damage then, but we can still stagger him for a moment. In fact, this sometimes causes Ram to fall down like this. But he can still move around and shoot us like this, so it's not very helpful. In fact, we found out after enough testing that Ram will only fall down like this when we hit him with a shotgun. I think it's something to do with the double hit potential, but hitting him again after knocking him down makes him stand back up again anyway. After many attempts, we noticed a pattern. When Ram walks from one train car to another, he often pauses for a few seconds before moving again. We formed a strategy that takes advantage of this. As soon as the fight starts, Ash and I run to the end of our car and hide behind these 2 blocks. We wait for Ram to reach our car and we hope he pauses. If he does, he has a chance to send his krill away as soon as he starts to move again. This is our cue to quickly get in a few punches before going back into hiding. Hugging this side of these blocks actually puts us close enough to the light so the krill can't insta-kill us here. One thing we have to worry about are the Reavers. They can still shoot us while we're hiding here. The Reavers' positions and spawn timing seem to vary based on RNG. Cole and Baird are piloting a chopper and they shoot down the Reavers, but how long it takes them to do so also seems to be RNG. If we're lucky, the AI keep the Reavers at bay long enough for us to get in several punches at the start of the fight. If we're unlucky, the Reavers will kill us before Ram can even reach us. If we time it right and don't get killed of course, we tend to land about 3 or 4 punches between us during this short window. This setup is relatively consistent, and this is how we started all our attempts going forward. After a strong opening, he often fakes us out by pointing towards us, only for him to send the sky krill at us instead of his body krill. With too few opportunities to actually get in melee damage, we died over and over again. There is one more trick that helps us get in some good damage early on in the fight. We discovered that it's possible to get the krill stuck in one spot for quite a while. It's all about timing. As Ram sends his krill towards us, if we run out of hiding at the perfect moment, the krill can sometimes get stuck flying around the block that we were hiding behind. This buys us time to land 3 or 4 hits each, but getting this to work consistently was quite difficult. Our best attempt for a long time was a total of 12 melee attacks between the 2 of us. So that got me thinking, how many melee attacks would it actually take to defeat him? It should be a simple case of checking his max HP in a guide and then checking how much damage our punches are dealing, except it's not as simple as it should be. According to the official guidebook, the strongest melee weapon is the torque bow. It deals 850 damage per hit, regardless of difficulty. The shotgun is weaker as it only deals 540 damage per hit, but the odd double damage would deal 1080 damage per hit, which is more than the torque bow. However, for the double damage to work, we need to be quite close to his body, and as I said, just touching Ram's body kills you. This is why we decided to stick with the torque bows. Anyway, according to the official guidebook, Ram has different max HP depending on the difficulty. On casual, it's 3500, on hardcore, it's 5500, and on insane, it's 7000. Except, if we're dealing 850 damage per hit, it should only take 9 hits in total to deal over 7000 damage, and as I said, our best attempt so far landed 12 hits. I'm also assured that Ram's HP is not affected by playing in co-op mode either. Something wasn't adding up. So, as a test, we tried this boss on casual difficulty 3 or 4 times, and we beat Ram in exactly 10 hits every time. That suggests that either he has at least 8,500 HP on casual, or we deal reduced damage against Ram. Also, when this game got remastered back in 2015, they added a 4th difficulty called Normal that slots between casual and hardcore. So at this point, who knows what Ram's max HP is on Insane? Anything could have changed since the original release. So we did another test. We used explosives to remove the krill from Ram's body, and then we quickly hit him with as many melee hits as we could. The explosion itself doesn't deal any damage while the krill are protecting him, so this way we can count our hits and find out exactly how many hits it takes to beat him on Insane. If my count is correct, it takes exactly 25 melee hits with a torque bow equipped on Insane difficulty. With a target to aim for, we now need to pull this off legit. The plan is to start behind these 2 blocks, since we know we can get a few hits in early on as he walks from one car to the next. After that, the idea is to go back and forth between the stone blocks and the barricade on the next car. Each time Ram tries to follow us, he will pause as he walks to the other car, which gives us a much needed reprieve when we're damaged. The danger of hiding behind the barricade is that we're easy targets for the Reavers, but if we stay close together, we can spam the square button to revive each other as soon as the other one falls. It's also possible to land a punch over the barricade itself if Ram comes close enough. If one of us doesn't make it back safely, the other will wait for Ram to pause before reviving their teammate. We got very good RNG on this attempt, and Ram sent his krill at us very regularly, although sometimes he won't walk forward when he sends them, and it's not worth the risk at running at him if he's too far away. This routine we're on also keeps us close enough to the light sources throughout, although sometimes it's better to get dropped by a Reaver or Ram's gun because the krill will ignore a player if they're already down. With all this knowledge that we'd built up over hours of practice, we finally landed the killing blow over the barricade. We have done it! Can you beat Gears of War with only melee? No. Not quite. We can avoid a lot of shooting and a lot of grenade use, but not entirely. We had to use the Hammer of Dawn at least 3 times. We were forced to blow ourselves up with our own grenades. We were forced to shoot the chains above a stage, and we were forced to shoot the Brumac a lot. We even had to shoot the Corpser since we can't use the skip on this version. But with how difficult some of the possible sections were in this game, and with what we were able to skip to help push this challenge further, this final punch on Ram still felt like we'd accomplished something great. Thank you for watching. If you like challenge runs, you're in the right place. Please subscribe, and give my friend a subscribe too. His name's Ash. I'll link his channel in the description. If you ever wanted to watch these videos early, then please consider becoming a Patreon or a YouTube member. I've set the prices as low as they will go, which is $1.50 or £1. That is exactly what all these people did. If you ever wondered why my brand new videos already have dozens of views on them, it's because these fine people already watched it days ago. At the time of recording, I don't have any other challenge runs on an Xbox game, or even any other shooter games, so it's hard to know what to link on the end card here. What about Dark Souls? Or Prince of Persia? I'm pretty sure they were on the Xbox too, right? I feel like such a fraud. I don't play Xbox games much, I'm sorry.